You don't want to make the flying mistakes that I'm about to cover because at the very least, you're gonna look silly, and at the very worst, you could get really hurt. Now, I have made every single mistake on this list. How do you think I came up with the list? But I promise, if you can just avoid these things, it will make you a better pilot. And so this first mistake is probably the most scared I've ever been in an airplane. I'm not proud of it, but I really hope it can help somebody. So I was flying in the mountains of Idaho, following a really good friend in his Cessna, so two Cessnas, and we were descending into Johnson Creek, probably the most iconic strip in all of Idaho. It's gorgeous. And I was a couple miles in trail for him, and as we were descending, I did not see Johnson Creek until way late and realized like, oh my gosh, I'm almost right over it. I'm a lot higher than I intended to be. But I thought, no, it's okay. I can just drop down, so I'll keep going. So then as I was about to kind of turn over midfield to enter the downwind, I heard a formation flight of other airplanes about to enter the downwind. And I thought, no problem. The best way I can just stay out of their way is just kind of keep going with the approach. I'll be on the ground and out of their way, no problem. So I kept going. And as I turned base and then to final, I realized I was way too fast and way too high, but I wasn't comfortable making a go around because I hadn't briefed the go around. If I'm being completely honest, I was following my friend in there and I had been in there before. I thought, no big deal. And so what did I do? I kept going. I'm really not proud of this, but I like vividly remember having the thought, I don't know that I'm gonna be able to stop before the trees at the end of the runway. And it took like everything I had to get the airplane on the ground because it was going so fast. Probably looked like a complete idiot to everybody else coming in. Got it on the ground, slammed on the brakes, and was able to stop before the trees. And I pulled off to the side next to my friend, and I just turned everything off. And I literally just put my hands, like my face in my hands, and I said, like, what did I just do? And it took me like over a year to tell anyone about that experience because I was so freaked out about it and I was ashamed by it. But now that I've had some time since that experience, I've realized that I can actually learn from it, which is why I'm sharing it here on YouTube. And I realized I made a critical mistake. Do you know what it was? It was that I kept going and I kept going, even when I shouldn't have. And that's when I learned a really important phrase, that safety slips in small stages. And it's probably not going to be some big, obvious decision that gets you hurt. No, it'll probably be a series of smaller decisions that aren't harmful by themselves, but once you add all of them up, it can put you in a really bad spot. And it's really, really sneaky, so don't do what I did. Another time, I got in my Cessna 182 that had just come out of the shop out of its annual inspection, so I was flying around making sure everything was good, and it was one of those really, really smooth, like perfect mornings where you just never want the flight to end. And so mid-flight, I thought, well, I've got enough gas, like why don't I fly to one of my favorite restaurants? It's about an hour and a half away. I've got enough gas to get there. Remember that moment. But I debated and I thought, no, I better get back. I got a lot to do. So I went back and landed at Addison. But as I was putting the airplane away, I spotted something that really could have hurt me. I noticed that my fuel selector was not on both tanks like I'm used to, but it was just on the right tank the whole time. So had I decided to fly to that restaurant because I thought, I've got enough fuel, right? I did have enough fuel in both tanks, but not enough in just one tank. I probably would have ran that tank dry and the engine would have quit. And that just completely rattled me because I wasn't that far from that happening and I would have not seen it coming at all. And that's when I learned a really important lesson. Never ever assume that things are the way you left them. I always leave my fuel on both, so honestly, I kind of glazed over that part of the checklist with fuel on both. Thought, yeah, it's always on both and I haven't touched it, so why wouldn't it be there? But then when it was in the shop, they turned it from both to the right tank and I didn't catch it. If it's on the checklist, take the half a second to just do it no matter what, every time. Another thing that's easy to miss is a mistake I made in the Kodiak 100, which is a single engine 10-seat turboprop that's just awesome. I was in recurrent training in a full motion sim and I got in and went through my checklist and began to try to start the engine. When I noticed it wasn't actually starting, something was wrong. So I aborted the startup sequence and I kind of sat there feeling a little puzzled, like, why didn't it start? Everything seemed right. And my instructor came over my headset and he said, "Did you check the circuit breakers?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Did you check all of them?" And I said, "No, not all of them." And he goes, "Well, you better do that." And sure enough, that circuit breaker for the igniters in the engine had been pulled out and it's on the very bottom row, the row that I got lazy and didn't check. So when you're checking your circuit breakers, don't just rush your hand over them and assume they're fine because they were fine the last time you were in the plane. The shop might have pulled one out while they were working on your plane, and it's easy to assume that they're all where you left them, and that might not actually be the case. This next mistake won't kill you, but it'll definitely make you look dumb. So I'll never forget one time, it was so busy talking to approach control in the Dallas Class B coming into Addison one time. And at one point, the approach controller goes, "Everyone stop talking, no new people checking in, I need to get through some handoffs." and then there's silence. And I kid you not, a couple seconds later, you hear this 24, 15 miles east of Addison, 2,500 with information Delta checking in. And I could just feel the whole frequency go. And that's why it's so important to just listen for a second whenever you join a new frequency. It's easy to just join and immediately start transmitting, but the AIM even suggests to listen before you transmit. Now, this guy might have just joined at like a really unfortunate time, which is pretty funny. But had he listened for a second, he would have then heard the controller, go through his list of handoffs and stuff and realize like, oh, I can't really check in. This guy is swamped. And then usually at the end, the controller say, okay, did I miss anyone checking on? And then you can talk. So just listen whenever you join. Another sneaky mistake is that once you get your license, you're gonna take that huge just sigh of relief. You don't have to study for a little bit. I don't need a flight review for 2 years. This is awesome. But you will realize that you will quickly get rusty on all of the book knowledge. And it's sneaky and it happens really fast because aviation is just like a language that you have to stay fluent in. And when you do have to study for your flight review, you're probably not going to go back and rewatch all of your ground school material or reread huge textbooks. Like, it's just not practical. And so in case it can help you, I want to let you know that I made my own set of super high quality private pilot flashcards. It's got about 350 cards covering pretty much everything you need to know, organized into 6 different color-coded sections. And so for my flight review, it was like really easy to just pull out cards on topics I know needed review, make my own little custom set, and stay sharp. So if you'd like to learn more, you can visit airplaneacademy.com/flashcards, and all of the information is there. Another sneaky mistake and habit that has taken me a while to unwind is this. If you are constantly landing like a third down the runway and there's no penalty for floating down the runway, that will come back to bite you when you need to do spot landings or try to land on like really cool short airstrips. So even on 7,000 foot runways like I have at my home airport at Addison, you can still practice spot landings and try to make the first taxiway turnoff. Like, don't let the long runway spoil you. It's really sneaky, but you get lazy fast. And it's the same with getting lazy on your approach speeds and trying to land too fast. Carrying an extra 10 knots, it's easy to say, well, I'm close enough. I'm aiming for 60, I'm at 70, whatever. I'm close and it's stable. And that might not really matter on a long runway because you'll just float, but you'll have plenty of room left. There's not really a consequence. But on really cool short airstrips that you might go explore in the backcountry or something, you just don't have that kind of margin. And you're really only a couple trim adjustments away from nailing your airspeed anyways, so try to be disciplined about this. Don't get lazy on the approach speeds. If you can treat your 7,000 foot runway like a 1,500 foot runway, it'll keep you sharp, and honestly, it's pretty fun to practice too. Now, this mistake really drives me crazy, though I'm guilty of it too, but tell me what you think is wrong with this radio call. Gillespie County Airport, Skylane 916 Delta Foxtrot is turning base. Well, was it right base or was it left base? And what runway are you even landing on? This radio transmission leaves a lot up to the imagination. And the sneaky way that I sometimes fall into making this mistake is that I'll do a perfectly good radio call out leading up to that moment. So like on downwind, I'll say, Gillespie County Airport, Skylane 916 Delta Foxtrot is midfield right downwind, landing runway 14 full stop Gillespie County. There's nothing wrong with that. But then a moment later, it's easy to just kind of update that transmission and just say, Gillespie 6 Delta Foxtrot turning base. The problem is, like, what happens if they didn't hear your original one or they just forgot it? Like, you might be updating everyone using shorthand, but honestly, it's better just to assume that everyone else is drunk. And that sounds weird, like, especially in a flying context, but just assume everyone's drunk, and that will help you remember to communicate, like, really clearly. Don't say Gillespie County Cub is over the Walmart, which I have actually heard. So don't get lazy in your transmissions and make incomplete radio calls at non-towered airports. It really doesn't help anything, you don't sound cool, and it really just confuses everyone. Another sneaky thing you'll always have to be careful of is the pressure to get to your destination no matter what. It's called get-there-itis, and I struggle with it all the time. And I think the biggest antidote to get-there-itis is this. Instead of just being really bummed by what canceling the trip means, which adds more pressure to complete the trip, ask yourself this. Just open the door to the thought of, what does this enable me to do that I couldn't do before? Like, I once had to cancel a 2-hour flight to make a 5-hour drive instead, and I really didn't want to do it. And I was rationalizing in my head like, well, that thunderstorm's not that big. It's not getting, it's not dark yet. Like all these things, I was trying to push it and push it. And then once I finally stopped and I was like, wait a second, what's so bad about a 5-hour drive? Like, it's 5 hours alone to myself that I get, and I don't have like kids screaming at me and stuff. I get to listen to podcasts, call a friend. What's so bad about that? If you can just find the silver lining in what plan B is, it's gonna help detach yourself from plan A and not succumb to get-there-itis. Now, if you've made any mistakes in the cockpit that have scared you, I really think that the video on the screen is going to encourage you. We really don't talk about this enough as a pilot community, but in this video, I do. So I'll see you there.